I woke up choking on plastic. A tube shoved down my throat, alarms shrieking, fluorescent lights stabbing into my eyes. My chest burned like fire. For a moment, I thought I'd crossed into hell. Then I heard voices. Familiar voices. My son's. My daughter's. "Let him go next time," my son muttered. I could hear the calm in his tone, the kind of calm that comes from planning. "The house is worth almost 900 grand. Insurance on top. We'll finally be free. My daughter hissed back, 'Shut up. Not here. If they revive him again, he might overhear.' I wanted to rip the tubes out and scream, but I couldn't move. I lay frozen, paralyzed, listening to my own flesh and blood plotting how convenient my death would be. The nurse walked in, and instantly their voices turned sweet. "Dad, you're safe. We're right here with you." Lies dripping off their tongues like honey laced with poison. The nurse adjusted my smiled at me like I was just another patient. But her eyes flicked at my kids, and something told me she'd heard too. When they left, she leaned close, whispering so quietly I almost thought I imagined it. "You're not crazy." I heard what they said. She slid a small black recorder into the pocket of my hospital gown. "Keep it on. Let it run." That was the moment my fear burned off, leaving only steel. Before I'll tell you what happened next, please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Thank you. The next morning, they came back with a lawyer. Cheap suit, fake sympathy. My son handed me papers. "Routine stuff, Dad. Just sign so we can make decisions if you can't." I glanced at the forms. Power of attorney. Full control of my life, my money, my body. My daughter added with that fake soft voice, "It's just for your protection. You trust us, don't you?" I forced a shaky smile. Let my hand tremble as I reached for the pen. Their eyes lit up. They thought they'd won. They thought the old man was too weak to fight. But what they didn't know was this. My signature was worthless. The papers they handed me were already switched. Because while they were busy rehearsing their little performance, the nurse had slipped me a different stack. Identical on the outside, but every page carried the opposite meaning, locking them out, protecting me. Their greed signed their own trap the moment they pushed that pen into my hand. That night, alone in the ward, I replayed the recording. Their voices, crystal clear. "Next time, don't save him." My daughter's laugh cut through me like a knife. They sounded like strangers. No, worse, like vultures. 25 years of sacrifice. Paying for their schools, their cars, their weddings. Staying up late, working double shifts, giving them everything. And now they wanted my death like it was just another deposit into their account. I stared at the ceiling tiles, the beeping of the monitor syncing with one single thought. They think I'm dying. They think I'm weak. They think they've already buried me. But I'm still here. And I'll make them choke on their own betrayal. When the doctor discharged me a week later, I walked out slower, paler, dragging my oxygen tank behind me. They carried my bag, all fake concern, talking loudly about how they'd take care of me from now on. I nodded, pretending to be fragile. But the recorder in my pocket was heavy as a loaded gun. And I was ready to pull the trigger. Because the truth was simple, my children had already tried to kill me. Now it was my turn. The smell of antiseptic still clung to me when I walked back into my house. My own house, built with 40 years of sweat and calloused hands. But the air felt different now, like an occupied territory. They followed me in, all smiles. My son carried my bag upstairs without asking. My daughter clutched my arm with that fake tenderness, guiding me like I was already half in the grave. "Don't worry, Dad," she said sweetly. "We'll handle everything from now on. You just focus on resting." I sat in my own recliner, the leather creaking under me, and watched them move around my kitchen like it already belonged to them. They whispered about selling excess furniture, about how much the property tax was, about the timing for putting the house on the market. Not one word about me, just assets, just numbers. The same night, I woke to footsteps. Heavy, slow. I didn't move, just kept my breathing shallow, eyes barely open. My son stood in my doorway, a silhouette against the hallway light. He held a folder in his hand, the one I kept in my desk drawer with insurance policies and bank statements. He flipped through it like a thief counting loot. Then he slipped it under his arm and walked out. He thought I hadn't seen. He thought the old man was asleep. I smiled in the dark. The next morning, he slid the folder back into the drawer. Wrong order, sloppy. He underestimated me again. That day, while they went shopping for groceries, I called the nurse, the one who had given me the recorder. It's all there, I told her. Their voices, their plan. They want me gone. She didn't hesitate. You need leverage. Real leverage. Not just words. That's when it hit me. They weren't just waiting for me to die. They were pushing. Setting up papers, planting evidence, preparing to declare me incompetent. But they had made one fatal mistake, forgetting who raised them. I was the man who taught them to fight, who showed them how to survive. And I knew every weakness they had. So I started small, quiet. I switched the medications in my pillbox. Not with poison, no, with vitamins. That way, when they tried to accidentally give me the wrong dosage, it would look like their plan had failed. And I'd be watching. I had cameras in plain sight, cheap ones, disguised as smoke detectors, clock radios. I placed the recorder in the hallway vent. Every whisper, every late-night plot would be mine. And then I fed them lies. At breakfast, I pretended to forget things. Asked what day it was. Stared at my coffee like I'd lost the thread. My daughter's eyes gleamed with triumph. See? He's slipping. She thought she had proof. She didn't know I was memorizing every word, every smirk, every hungry glance. By the third day, I caught my son making a call in the garage. He's weaker than ever, he whispered. Another week, maybe two. The doctor will sign it once he sees the papers. We'll have everything. I recorded all of it. And while they thought I was dozing in front of the TV, I was planning. Mapping every move like a military campaign. Step 1, let them think I'm finished. Step 2, let them tighten the noose with their own hands. Step 3, pull it. They wanted my death certificate. Instead, they'd get their own signatures on their destruction. And as I sat in that recliner, their voices floating from the kitchen, I knew one thing for certain. They had no idea the war had already begun. 3 nights later, I staged my first strike. Not loud, not violent, just enough to shake their confidence. I waited until 2 a.m., when the house was silent except for the furnace humming. My son's office light glowed under his door. He thought I didn't know about his late-night calls. I slipped down the hallway, slow, steady, and slid the recorder I'd planted earlier under his bed just a few inches closer to the vent. The mic caught everything. Listen, he won't last long, my son whispered into the phone. The doctor already hinted we can push for guardianship. Once he's declared incompetent, the house is ours. I'll cover your cut after the sale. Guardianship. My own son wanted to legally erase me while I was still breathing. I pressed record on my phone from the hallway. 2 devices capturing every filthy syllable. The next morning, I let the trap spring just a little. I sat at the kitchen table, pale on purpose, shaking slightly as I buttered my toast. My daughter swooped in like a vulture. Dad, you should let us manage your bills. Less stress for you. I looked at her, voice weak but sharp. Funny. I checked the account last night. 25,000 missing. Any idea where it went? She froze. For the first time, her mask cracked. You must be confused. Maybe you forgot a withdrawal. I smiled thinly. Maybe, but she knew. I saw it in her eyes, panic. She'd been skimming, counting on my silence. By noon, they were whispering in the living room, thinking I couldn't hear. He suspects something, my daughter hissed. Then push harder, my son snapped. He's old, weak. He won't fight. Old, weak. That was the moment I decided it was time to move from defense to offense. That evening, I made a call to an old friend, retired detective, still had connections in the county. I need you to keep a package safe for me, I said. He didn't ask questions. He knew the tone in my voice. The package was simple. USB drives with every recording, printed transcripts, copies of the fake documents they shoved under my nose. Evidence stacked like ammo. Back home, I played my role better than ever. I forgot to lock the door. I left my checkbook in plain sight. I asked my son to explain insurance policies to me because I don't remember the details anymore. His grin told me everything. He thought the kill was close. What he didn't know was that the cameras caught him swapping out pages in my policy folder. He thought it was invisible. He thought he was clever. The next day, I invited them both to dinner. Just the three of us. I set the table the way their mother used to: candles, heavy plates, her silverware polished. Nostalgia always disarms people. Halfway through the meal, I put down my fork. My hands didn't shake this time. "I know what you're doing," I said quietly. The air went still. My daughter's fork clattered onto her plate. My son forced a laugh. "What are you talking about, Dad?" I leaned forward, eyes cold. "You should pray I'm as weak as you think. Because if I'm not, you've already lost." They stared at me, pale, silent, suddenly not so confident. I stood, left the table, and let them stew in that silence. Because the war had just shifted. They no longer thought I was clueless. Now they had to wonder, how much did I know? How much had I seen? The beauty was they still had no idea how deep the hook already went. The first blow had to be clean, precise, something that would make them bleed without me lifting a finger. I waited until Monday morning. My son strutted into the kitchen in his pressed shirt, coffee mug in hand, acting like a man who already owned the house he hadn't earned. My daughter scrolled her phone, smug smile plastered on her face. "Big week," I muttered, stirring my oatmeal. "County office called yesterday." Both of them froze for a fraction of a second. "Perfect." I let the silence drag before adding, "They wanted to verify some signatures on property documents." Odd, isn't it? My son's hand tightened around the mug. My daughter's eyes flicked up, searching my face for clues. "What signatures?" she asked, too quickly. I smiled faintly. "Guess we'll see." By noon, the panic started. Whispered phone calls in the garage, slamming doors. At one point, I caught my daughter pacing the yard, clutching her phone, hissing, "How the hell did he find out?" He wasn't supposed to, before cutting herself off when she noticed me watching from the window. Good. Let them sweat. That night, I slipped out while they argued in the living room. I walked 3 blocks to meet Detective Mason, my old friend, at a diner. He slid an envelope across the booth. Inside, certified copies of everything. Forged power of attorney. Altered insurance policies. Bank transfers into accounts with their names on them. "Solid evidence," Mason said. "Enough to bury them." "Not yet," I replied. "I don't want them jailed. I want them ruined. I want them to destroy themselves before anyone else touches them." The next day, I let the second strike land. I accidentally left my phone unlocked on the coffee table, screen glowing with a recording file open. My son noticed it first. He snatched it up, scrolling through audio files labeled with dates. I watched his face strain of color as he listened to his own voice. "The house is worth 900 grand. We'll be free once he's gone." He snapped his head toward me. I just stared back, calm, cold, spoon tapping the edge of my coffee mug. "Something wrong?" I asked. He didn't answer. He shoved the phone down, muttering something about old men messing with technology. But I saw it, the fear. The sudden knowledge that I wasn't asleep at the wheel. By evening, they were fighting each other. I heard it through the thin walls. "You idiot," my daughter spat. "You talked too much on the phone." He has proof. "And you," my son has back. "You drained the account without covering your tracks." He knows. He's playing us. Music to my ears. I let them believe I was upstairs, frail and half-dozing. In reality, I was recording every word. They weren't united anymore. They were tearing each other apart. Exactly what I wanted. When I stepped into the kitchen the next morning, both of them went silent, staring at me like I was a ghost. I poured my coffee slowly, deliberately, letting the silence crush them. Finally, I said it, sharp, clipped, undeniable. "You tried to kill me. I know it. And now you'll watch each other burn." I walked out, leaving them speechless in the kitchen, fear etched into their faces. The war was no longer mine against them. It was theirs against each other. And that was the sweetest revenge of all. I didn't need fists. I didn't need poison. All I needed was their greed. And greed makes people sloppy. By Wednesday, the cracks in their alliance were wide open. They barely spoke at the dinner table, My son's jaw was locked tight, veins bulging in his temple. My daughter tapped her fork against the plate like a ticking bomb. Perfect. That night, I made my move. I left a folder on my desk, half open, just enough for them to see. Inside, fake bank statements showing a secret account with $280,000 sitting untouched. All in my name, all ready to be inherited. I watched from the dark hallway as my son found it first. He flipped through the pages, eyes glowing like a predator that had just scented blood. "I knew it," he muttered. "The old bastard's hiding money." My daughter appeared behind him, grabbed the papers, scanned them with shaking hands. "We need this transferred before he changes his will." Their voices were sharp, desperate. Hook, line, sinker. What they didn't know. The folder had a tiny GPS tag taped inside. Mason had helped me set it up. Every move they made with those papers would be traced. Every attempt to cash, copy, or use them would lead right back to me with evidence. The next morning, my son tried to play it casual. "Dad, maybe we should review your finances. You know, just in case. We could help you move money into safer accounts." I looked at him, deadpan. "Safer for who?" He swallowed hard, pretending to laugh. My daughter glared at me, but said nothing. By afternoon, the war escalated. I caught them whispering in the garage again. "If we can get him to the lawyer by Friday, he'll sign." "He's weak," my daughter pushed. "No," my son snapped. "He's pretending. Didn't you see his eyes? He knows." That's when I played my third card. I called them both into the living room. Sat in my recliner, oxygen tank hissing softly at my side. I held up an envelope, thick with papers. "This," I said, "is my will. Updated. Ironclad." They froze, staring at the envelope like it was a live grenade. "Want to know what's inside?" I asked. My voice was calm, sharp as glass. My son licked his lips. My daughter leaned forward. I smiled coldly. "Too bad. You'll see it when I'm gone. And by then, it'll be too late to change a damn thing." I slid the envelope back into the desk drawer. Let them sit with it. Let their imaginations eat them alive. That night, I heard them again, fighting, louder this time. "You pushed too hard. You screwed it up. You ruined everything." Their alliance had crumbled. Suspicion had replaced trust. They weren't scheming against me anymore. They were scheming against each other. And I sat upstairs, smiling in the dark, recorder running, every word captured. The first strike had been mine. The second, my trap with the fake folder. The third, my phantom will. Now it was time to tighten the noose. By Friday morning, I could feel the pressure in the house like static before a thunderstorm. My son barely looked at me anymore, too busy clutching his phone, pacing, barking into it like a cornered dog. My daughter snapped at him over every detail, her voice sharp, brittle, desperate. It was working. Suspicion had sunk its claws in. They didn't trust each other anymore. All I had to do was tighten the rope. I cooked breakfast deliberately slow, filling the kitchen with the smell of frying bacon and burnt toast. It was the kind of breakfast their mother used to make on Sundays. Back then it meant love. Now it was bait. "Sit," I said flatly when they hovered at the doorway. They did. Nervous. Hungry, but not for food. Hungry for control. Hungry for whatever scraps of my life they thought they could devour. I dropped a folder on the table. The pages inside were bank statements, doctored, printed, aged to look official. They showed transfers from my accounts into one marked with both their names. Forged signatures at the bottom, neat and convincing. "Funny thing," I said, sipping my coffee. "Someone's been moving money around. Using my name, using my signature. And according to this, it was the two of you." The room froze. My son grabbed the folder instantly, eyes darting, hands trembling though he tried to mask it. This is fake," he barked. My daughter snatched it from him, flipping through page after page, her face blanching. "Where did you get this?" she demanded. "I don't know," I said, leaning back. "Maybe it just appeared. Maybe the state investigator who already has copies will explain it better." The silence after that was the kind that makes your ears ring. My daughter's knuckles whitened around the pages. My son's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You called the police?" my daughter finally whispered. No, I leaned forward, eyes burning into theirs. Not yet, but I mailed everything, these pages, recordings, documents, to a friend. If anything happens to me, if I so much as trip on the stairs, it all lands on a fraud investigator's desk. Sealed, certified, untouchable. You understand. I watched their faces change in real time. The smug confidence evaporated. What replaced it wasn't guilt, it was fear. Cold, sweating fear. And then I twisted the knife. That secret account you found in my drawer? I smirked. The one with the $280,000 balance? That wasn't money. That was bait. Those papers carried a GPS tag. I know exactly where you took them, who you showed them to, and how greedy you looked holding them. Congratulations. You just incriminated yourselves. My son's jaw dropped. My daughter's hands shook so badly the folder slipped, papers scattering across the table like falling leaves. She bent to gather them, but her brother snatched them first. You set me up, he hissed at her. She glared back, eyes wild. Don't you dare turn this on me. You're the one who forged half the crap in Dad's desk. Forged? I asked calmly, sipping my coffee. Interesting choice of words. They both turned to me then, panic written across their faces. For the first time, they weren't thinking of me as the frail old man they could manipulate. They were seeing me as something else, something dangerous. And that was exactly what I wanted. The rest of the day, the house turned into a battlefield. Doors slammed. Their voices rose in the hallways. I heard every word through the thin walls. You idiot, my daughter shrieked at him. You talked too much on the phone. He has proof. He's going to bury us. And you, my son snapped, you drained his account without covering your tracks. He knows you've been skimming for months. You think you're so smart, she shot back, voice trembling, but if he goes to the cops, you'll be the one in handcuffs first. Shut up, he growled. You wanted the house more than I did. Don't act like you're innocent. I sat in my recliner in the next room, recorder running, catching every word. Their rage was fuel, every scream another nail in their own coffins. That evening, I turned the screws tighter. I walked into the living room holding a thick envelope. This, I said, is my will. Updated. Sealed. Ironclad. They both froze. My son's eyes darted to my daughter's face. Her lips parted, thirsty for whatever was inside. Want to know what's in it? I asked, voice sharp as broken glass. They leaned forward. Hope flickered. Greed glowed. I smiled cold. Too bad. You'll see it when I'm gone. And by then it'll be too late to change a damn thing. I slid the envelope into my desk drawer and locked it. Their eyes followed every move. They thought the answer to their future was inside that paper. What they didn't know, it was another trap. A phantom will, filled with nothing but blank pages. After dinner, the explosion came. I sat in my room, recorder running, as the walls shook with their screaming. You screwed it all up, my daughter shrieked. Me? My son bellowed back. You're the one who pushed him too far. You're the reason he knows. You ruined everything. Slammed doors. Shattered glass. A family tearing itself apart. And I sat upstairs, smiling in the dark. When the house finally fell silent, I stood, walked to my desk, and sealed the latest recording in a fresh envelope. On the front, in thick black ink, I wrote one word, insurance. They wanted my death certificate. Instead, they'd just signed their own. Saturday night. The house smelled of gasoline, though none had been spilled. That's how heavy the tension was. One spark and everything would go up. My son hadn't looked me in the eye in 2 days. My daughter hovered like a crow, waiting for me to fall, whispering with him 1 hour, screaming at him the next. They were cracking, splintering, desperate. And desperation makes people stupid. I set the trap. Not with violence, not with fire. With invitation. Tomorrow, I said over dinner, voice calm, almost soft, we're going to church. Family Sunday. All of us. Sit together in front like we used to. They froze. Forks clinked against plates. My son muttered, what for? I leaned back, steady, sipping my water. Because it's time this town saw us as a family again. They didn't argue. They couldn't. The idea of refusing in public, in front of neighbors, would raise too many questions. They were already nervous about how much I knew. Now they'd have to play along. Sunday morning, we walked into First Baptist together. My daughter wore a mask of piety, hands folded. My son forced smiles, shaking hands with old friends. And me? I carried a small black case under my arm. Halfway through the service, during the community announcements, Pastor called on me. He didn't know what I had planned, not exactly. He just thought I wanted to say a few words about recovery after my hospital stay. I stood at the pulpit, voice steady, eyes sharp. I want to thank everyone here for your prayers. I nearly didn't make it, but I did. And while I was lying in that hospital bed, I heard things. Things no father should ever hear from his children. The room shifted. Murmurs. Heads turned toward my kids. Their faces paled, rigid smiles cracking. I opened the case, pulled out a small speaker, pressed play. Their voices filled the church like poison in holy air. Don't resuscitate him if it happens again. We need the house. The insurance, too. Better if he just slips away. Gasps. Neighbors covering mouths. Old friends shaking their heads in disgust. My daughter's hands shot to her face. My son looked like he'd been punched in the gut. I let the recording play until the last syllable echoed off stained glass windows. Then I snapped the speaker off, tucked it back into the case, and said the only words that mattered. These are my children. This is what family means to them. Silence. The kind that burns more than shouting. I left the pulpit without waiting for applause, without waiting for prayers. Walked straight down the aisle while they sat frozen, the entire town's eyes on them. By the time we reached home, they were finished. Reputation shredded. Friends gone. Whispers already spreading like wildfire through the neighborhood. But I wasn't done. That night, I set the final stage. Another letter, another envelope marked executor. Inside, every forged document, every transfer, every recording. Ready to land on an investigator's desk first thing Monday morning. I placed it on the mantel where they couldn't miss it. And I told them, with the same steel voice I once used barking orders to soldiers, you wanted me dead. Instead, you'll watch me live. And every day I breathe will be a day you choke on what you've done. My daughter's eyes filled with tears, but not the kind that mean regret. Fear. My son's fists clenched, but his body sagged. He knew the fight was over. The rope was tight. Their necks already caught. And Monday morning I was going to pull. Monday morning was cold, sharp clean. The kind of morning that clears the air of excuses. I woke early, brewed my coffee, and placed the executor envelope neatly in the center of the dining table. I wanted them to see it the second they walked in. They came downstairs together, pale, broken, eyes red from a sleepless night. My daughter's hands shook around her mug. My son wouldn't even sit. He stood against the wall like a caged animal. What's in the envelope? He finally spat. Everything I said. The forged documents. The recordings. The transfers. All of it. Enough to end your reputations, your jobs, your marriages. Enough to make sure no one in this town forgets who you really are. You wouldn't, my daughter started. I cut her off. You already did. I just documented it. The phone rang at 9:01. Right on schedule. Detective Mason's voice carried clear across the speaker. Mr. Walker, I received your package. It's airtight. We'll move forward today. I clicked the call onto speaker, let their faces absorb every word. My daughter gasped. My son's knees buckled, and he finally sat, staring at the floor like a condemned man. When I hung up, the silence was suffocating. Only the tick of the kitchen clock. I should let them drag you both out in handcuffs, I said. I should watch you rot. They both looked up, desperate, hopeful that maybe I'd soften. That maybe there was mercy left. There's only one thing you'll get from me, I continued, my voice like stone. Distance. You'll leave this house today. You'll never come back. And you'll tell anyone who asks exactly why. You'll tell them what you did, or I will. My son opened his mouth, but no words came. My daughter broke into sobs that sounded more like rage than sorrow. I stood, slow, steady, collected the envelope, and slid it into the safe they'd tried so hard to crack. The lock clicked shut like a judge's gavel. This house doesn't belong to you. My life doesn't belong to you. Nothing does. I looked at them one last time, the children I once loved more than my own breath. You buried that the moment you wished me dead. I opened the front door. The cold air rushed in. Out, I ordered. They shuffled past me, broken, humiliated, the eyes of neighbors already watching from across the street. Two traitors exposed, stripped, and finished. I stood on the porch, breathing in the winter air. Strong, alive. And as their car pulled away, I whispered the final words they'd never forget. You wanted my death certificate. Instead, you just signed your own. Thank you for watching this story. If it touched your heart, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want more stories like this, check out the next video. See you there.